I've heard that charisma is power and warmth. The power one, I don't feel like I've really figured out yet. Not even just for myself, but even conceptually. I don't know if I quite understand that. The warmth, though, it's almost formulaic. And I notice some people, maybe it's more genuine than I'm perceiving. And I think it can become genuine. Laughter is very interesting. I heard a podcast about this and I kind of like tried it. Just trying to find things funny. So you're not just laughing at completely random moments, but you're looking for something that's funny and letting yourself laugh. And people immediately like relax and they start laughing more. It just builds this kind of rapport really quickly. And I've noticed a lot of charismatic people, like they just laugh very soon when you start talking to them. And it really does kind of lighten the mood. If you're on a solo channel, it's a little harder.
Right. Because then you have to like really set up those moments where either you say something or like you're like kind of laughing at your own joke or like, you know, like that makes it a lot more difficult. But I see people do that all the time.
Welcome back to the Creative Files podcast. What are the most important characteristics for creators to have to be successful? Very subjective question, and we did absolutely no prep for this.
Yeah, I think that's good though.
Yeah?
Not just because it saved time, but also because I think it's going to make us think a little more creatively on the fly.
Yeah.
The first one that I thought of, you have to be someone who's willing to stick with something for a long time.
Yeah.
And there's a word for that. And since I didn't plan
Grit,
that word,
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I read something earlier today that kind of made me think of this. It's like not everyone is cut out to be a creator. And it's just like, I don't know if it's determination, being willing to stick with something for a very long time, even when sometimes, perseverance, that's probably the right word. A creator needs to have perseverance.
Absolutely. Because even people that have early success, like you see this with every single creator. It doesn't matter if it takes them 3 years to take off or if it takes them one video to take off. There's always these ebbs and flows where it's like, oh, well, then I had a really great video. And I think all my videos are going to be that good from now on. And then it looks like your channel is declining. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Or maybe you get burnt out and you don't want to do that topic anymore and you pivot and that doesn't go well. Or you get bad feedback. There are so many reasons. And I think that does absolutely apply to everybody.
Yeah. I also think that it doesn't look like a one-size-fits-all scenario. I mean, if we look at so many different examples of creators, there are some who start creating, they leave for a while, they come back, they leave for a while, and they still make it work. And so I do think that even if you aren't necessarily like grinding every day in the sort of the way you might think perseverance would look, I think it can still work because there is this creative side to YouTube where depending on your audience and what their expectations are, they may or may not be willing to cut you slack. And if you upload twice a year, they may be okay with that. We've talked about on this podcast a creator, Michael Reeves, who kind of famously uploads once or twice a year. And it's a big joke in his community that he only uploads very infrequently.
Yeah.
But his videos are really good. It works for him.
That's such an interesting case study.
It is.
Really interesting.
I definitely don't think that. I think that definitely is the exception, not the rule. But I mean, he even has said that he has people paying every month for a Patreon subscription that he uploads nothing to. But again, it's a joke. People who are subscribing to that are supporting him. And so I love that perseverance does feel very gritty, but then you also throw in this creative side, this creative element to YouTube, and all of a sudden you can break some of those rules.
Yeah. So the first one I thought of was being self-aware. Because you can improve almost anything if you recognize that there's something to improve. And I think most creators do recognize that there are things they need to improve. But a lot of the creators that I personally feel will maybe never have success unless they change the way they're looking at things are the ones who say, my videos are amazing. My videos are perfect. It's the algorithm.
Right.
And like, I don't know. I know this is such a cliche. We've talked about it before. And like, in fact, it's getting to be such a cliche that I think a lot of people are not doing that anymore. But I saw it just last week on a video. Somebody was saying, not one of ours, but somebody else's video. Somebody was commenting saying like, I'm going to give up on YouTube because my videos are wonderful and amazing. And it's just the algorithm is like trying to suppress small creators. I don't think that is in YouTube's best interest.
Right.
I went to the channel. I'll leave it at that.
Were they amazing?
They did have a handful of people that enjoyed their videos, but compared to all the other content on YouTube,
right.
No, they weren't amazing. So, I mean, and I hate saying that because it's a creative endeavor. And if you think your videos are amazing and you don't care if anybody agrees, then keep making your videos. I mean that.
Right.
But this person obviously wasn't just in it for the fulfillment of her creative works because she's saying, I'm going to quit because it's not working. Right. They said they were trying to do it full time, right? So I think that's a big one. And even in the littler things, maybe you're not totally blaming the algorithm, but if you are able to look at your videos and be really objective and say, okay, well, maybe I am great on camera or good enough on camera for now, but my editing really, or my pacing really needs some work, or vice versa. If you're able to just pick out those things and not have too much bias, and I know even really successful creators do this. Hillier Smith calls it killing your darlings. Like you get attached to your thing and you may feel like it's better than it is, or you just want it in there, even though that might not be what's best for your audience. So if you're really trying to grow, I think being able to be really honest with yourself, really self-aware of what things do I need to work on and making a little bit of progress.
I would say another one that I thought of that pairs very nicely with the one you just shared is a willingness to learn, which we kind of touched on that. It's not just, I think the self-awareness is maybe just step one to that, but then also putting that self-awareness into action. It's, my videos are better than they used to be, but they still need XYZ improvements. Yeah. And so I'm going to do this, right? So it's just sort of like the next step to that. So many times we hear that like adults are the worst students because I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it has to do with just people. I don't know if it's a Western culture thing. I don't know if it's adults all around the world have a really hard time being willing to learn and being willing to change and improve. It's like once we get out of like our schooling years, it feels like everything that we do should come naturally. And anything that doesn't come naturally, it's not right for me, or right? Yeah. It just feels like I get that. I don't get that attitude. I feel that attitude out there on YouTube all the time. Whatever it is you're doing, if it's not working, well, it's the way that I'm doing it. And if it's not going to work, then it's not going to work. And I think that mindset, not being willing to change or adapt, and being willing to implement those changes, it's something that will really hold people back. And so, having like the heart of a student, be really, really willing to learn, I think makes such a big difference. And it's hard, especially when you're getting feedback. And maybe this is a big part of why it's hard for adults to learn, is because it feels like whoever's teaching you is most likely also an adult. And that feels like getting feedback from a peer.
Who are
almost.
you?
Yeah, it's just like, so yeah, how do you know? And I think that that's maybe something that's humbling and difficult to do. But I think that at the end of the day, if you do want to improve, it's not only recognizing, but then also implementing.
Yeah. And how much of that do you think is them not agreeing that it's something they need to learn versus them thinking, yes, that's true, but just feeling incapable, like they could never learn it? Because I know I struggle with that. Or maybe I know, hypothetically, could I learn to do animations and be a really amazing editor? Yes, but it feels so far away that it's like, I don't know if I can ever even get to that. How much of that do you think is?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some split. I do think that a lot of people are just prideful and that they just don't want to change or they don't want to improve. Or, just going back to, well, if I don't know how to do it, or if I tried it once, it didn't come easy. Like if I get into Photoshop day one and I'm like, I'm going to figure this out, but then by the end of the day, I don't.
Yeah.
Like, am I ever going to go back to that? Or, the average adult, will they ever go back? If it's not something they really, 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 really want, then I don't think they're going to do it. I have somewhat of an example of that, which I think there's a lot of things also as adults we say we want, and then we don't actually really want them. We have a personal projects meeting here very often in our office, and most of us here participate in that in some form or fashion. And just today, we sent out a message right before the meeting and said, hey, does anyone have anything to share? And 95% of people didn't, which, okay, maybe that happens. And things come up, whatever. But if we really, 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 really wanted our projects to work and to move forward, we would have had something to report. We would have had progress to share and report.
It's every other week.
Right.
And that's not a rare occurrence that we have very few people. I mean, probably usually we have more than that, but yeah, all the time we're coming like, no, didn't do anything this week. Right. It's not once in a while because Christmas is a week away or something.
Right. And it's also like our projects are something we've all said that we want to do.
Right.
But what part of that is maybe, I don't want to be the only one who's not doing anything, or, everyone else is going to be in the meeting and I don't go show up. Like there's like maybe some amount of peer pressure, or I just think that happens a lot where we say we want something, or, maybe it's like, I want to save up and whatever, have some financial goal. It's like, okay, well, am I going to go do the things on a daily basis that's going to lead me to that financial goal? Or am I just going to say that I want that, or that I'm going to say that I'm working toward that? But in the back of my mind, I know I'm not really taking the steps, like learning animation, like you said. If I want to learn animation, I will be sitting down for 30 minutes to an hour a day learning something. And if I just say I want to learn animation, I will never learn animation. Anyway, I just think that there's a lot, and maybe people just do feel inadequate, but I do think that we have a problem with learning. A big one. I think
and we don't take into account opportunity costs when we make goals all the time in every way of life. It's like, I want to run a marathon someday. Well, do you want to trade the time and effort and everything for that? Because everybody wants to have all these wonderful things accomplished in life, but do you want it badly enough to sacrifice other things in your life? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, I think it's a good one. I was thinking too, this is your first point you brought up, your first characteristic, but I was talking to Ricky the other day kind of about this topic about, what makes it work for some people. And he said that he thinks a lot of it is just having confidence that it will eventually work out. Maybe not the exact way you're doing it. Maybe you have to pivot and adjust and all these things, learn more, but having the confidence that it will eventually work out. And then that really shows through in the way you present, the topics you choose, frequency of publishing, if you give up too soon, all those things. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah,
I think I'd agree with that. We see it a lot where people are creating. We look at a lot of people's channels. We help people with YouTube, and it's pretty obvious when there's burnout happening. For me anyway, I can just there's something wrong or off. And I almost think that, I don't want to call it naive confidence, but it's just like, even though it's not working right now and there's no indication that it's going to work, if I'm doing, if I'm following a repeatable process, or, taking the right steps, putting in the daily actions, then eventually it should work, or eventually it will work. I think that sort of confidence is really good. Maybe that's just hope, a big amount of hope, and that might inspire you just to keep going. And like you said, that's going to help you pick your topics. It's like, if I am really in this for the long run, I'm not going to just do a huge, one-off video that I think is going to send me viral. It's going to be, step after step after step of me trying to build something meaningful.
Yes. That's
a big difference.
That's a big difference. Exactly. Which I've recently harped on that just publishing and not improving, but it's not that, because you can improve every single time. Even if you're not trying to improve, you're going to learn things every time.
Right.
But yeah, I think the approach you take, if you are just trying to wait for a viral video, is very different from this building block approach of, I'm building my brand, I'm building, what I want this to be. Which brings me to another one I thought of, which is just being passionate about it enough. I kind of hate that word, because I think people hear that word and then they think that they are missing something.
Right.
Because maybe they look at other people and they're super excited on camera and they're just telling you how much they just love to get this video out. And maybe part of that's true. Part of it's often in marketing.
Yeah.
And passion doesn't always look like, I'm so excited to do this thing today. But overall, really wanting your channel to exist in the world, instead of just I really want to make money.
Right.
Or I should do a YouTube channel.
Right.
Been there. But if you're able to find a topic and even an angle on a topic and ways you deliver it where you just feel good about what you're putting out there, instead of just I'm adding to the mass of videos on YouTube, but if you really feel I am glad that this is going to exist in the world. I don't want to be in an arrogant way, but I think that some amount of that is kind of necessary for it to work.
That concept of just being excited or passionate. people also, they always view that as some romanticized version of perfection.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And it's just not that. And, maybe you go to you meet someone on the street and it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, you look up to people, or any big YouTuber we watch. It's like, oh man, they must have the life, But the reality is they're doing the same daily steps as a beginning YouTuber, and they probably are just a little better at it, better, maybe more confident. So like they're living the same life you're living. Maybe they're reaping some additional benefits that you want, but the reality is they're still trudging through the difficulty. They just are getting some of those additional benefits. So I think you're right. I think it is this overarching hope or passion or interest or love of what you do. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of people find that passion, like, or purpose, I guess is maybe another word, purpose for like, who are you publishing for? And I think sometimes when you just publish into the ether, it's too vague. It's hard to know who we're publishing for, but I've known people who, create videos for their kids. And it's just like, these are funny, maybe it's a comedy channel. These are funny skits or jokes or whatever that someday my kids will grow up and watch.
Yeah.
Or, and that's maybe a little bit silly, and maybe that's just like one very specific way, but like, that's kind of cool. Maybe you don't keep a journal, or maybe you don't, have any log of what you do in your life, but they'll have that. I have a family member who has written just books that are not like published or anything like that, but it's just stuff they've learned. And again, that's like for future posterity. Like they have a couple kids, like you spent hundreds of hours doing something for 3 people. Like that's passion,
Right.
And if you can take that and translate that meaningfulness that comes from doing something like that, when there's no really physical reward for that, but if you could go do that work and then hopefully someday reap those additional benefits, I think that's a much better way to look at it.
Right. And I think you can have both. Like there can be a side of, I also want money. I also want to spend a full-time thing. I also want views. That's fine. As long as there is some North Star of, I actually care about this thing.
Yep.
Especially with topics too. And at the beginning we were saying, oh, you can learn anything. Or I said, you can learn anything. I would almost argue that that is one thing that is very hard to learn. Like if you think of a topic that you don't care about at all, how are you going to know what other people are going to want to click on?
Right.
You can't.
Yep.
You really, maybe if you spent 20 years trying to develop a passion for something, but like, especially with an extreme thing that you just have no interest in,
right?
How are you going to know what's going to make that person, oh, I want to click so bad.
Yeah.
It's going to be very hard.
Yeah. I totally agree with that because I've tried doing some of those things. Okay. Another one that I thought of, well, I didn't think of it. We've talked about this quite often around the office and it just left my brain.
Maybe we can cut.
Leave this in. Charisma.
There we go. Yeah, it's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Something that I have very little of. But I think that like being on camera is not easy, and not just getting yourself to be on camera, but then being good at being on camera is even harder. And I think that people who have charisma, or at least can fake it enough to be on camera, I think they're 9 out of 10 times going to be better on YouTube, because I think charisma and marketing, which is so key on YouTube, go hand in hand. And it's not just marketing, but like the connectivity with your audience. Mm-hmm. There's so many. There's like if you have charisma here, there's just like 10 really valuable things that all point in to charisma. Anyway, I think that's such a big one.
It's such a catch-22 kind of, because I think people don't recognize that because they think, well, I watch channels. Like I don't watch a channel because the person's charismatic. Maybe they think I watch them because I like their personality. And yes, I think if you really master charisma, you are figuring out how to portray your personality in maybe a slightly more dramatic way or more impactful way, mm-hmm. or just a live way, more like you are in real life than how most people feel in front of a camera. Right. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that. And especially with marketing, right? Nobody thinks, oh, I want to watch a video with really good marketing. In fact, we feel the opposite.
Right. We want to avoid that.
Yes. But the videos that often do well have an element of marketing.
Yep.
It doesn't mean marketing a product. It might mean marketing the video itself, kind of hyping it up a little bit. A lot of creators are really good at like making their video sound like the best one out there. And in some ways it is. And in some ways you have to tap into that of, okay, well, in what ways is this really great? Because if you think you're making something that isn't any better than anything else out there, then don't make it.
Yeah.
But if you think, maybe it's not the best video on YouTube about the topic, but maybe in some ways, why are you making it? In what way is it better or providing something that none of the other videos are providing? And then play that up a little bit.
Okay, so how would you, like, I guess for maybe someone who has very little charisma, how would you break that down? Like, what base traits, I guess, could someone develop? Because honestly, out of all these that we've talked about, this one seems to be huge. And it's just like probably one of the hardest ones to learn. So I don't know, where would you even start?
Because it doesn't feel concrete.
Right.
I've heard that charisma is power and warmth. The power one, I don't feel like I've really figured out yet. Not even just for myself, but even conceptually. I don't know if I quite understand that.
Do you think it's like confidence?
I think it's more confidence and people respecting you.
Right.
I think if they trust you and respect you and, maybe think you're an expert. So that maybe that could be very different depending on your topic. Maybe it's, I don't have a lot of respect for this person, but I can tell they know what they're talking about with this topic. Or maybe it's, you don't even have any expertise, but I respect your values, things like that.
Like confident, almost trust, maybe adding that in there a little bit.
Right. Being who you are, not really caring too much about pleasing people because that's not appealing. The warmth though, it's almost formulaic. And I notice some people are better than others and maybe it's more genuine than I'm perceiving. And I think it can become genuine. Laughter is very interesting. I heard a podcast about this and I kind of like tried it. Just trying to find things funny. So you're not just laughing at completely random moments, but you're looking for something that's funny and letting yourself laugh and people immediately like relax and they start laughing more or they light up like, oh, and maybe it's not even laughing at their jokes. You know, it's just like, it just builds this kind of rapport really quickly. And I've noticed a lot of charismatic people, like they just laugh very soon when you start talking to them. And it really does kind of lighten the mood. If you're on a solo channel, it's a little harder.
Right.
For sure. But
well, it's hard because then you have to like really set up those moments where either you say something or like, like kind of laughing at your own joke or, like, like that makes it a lot more difficult. But I see people do that all the time. Or maybe it's just like add in this chuckle here or, I don't know. Like I see that, like I know exactly what you're talking about. And I do think you're right. I think sometimes it does feel a little
forced,
not necessarily even forced. Yes, forced, but like just planned.
Oh yeah.
Like they did that for a reason.
Yeah. And
I don't know how I feel about that. I'm a little torn on like the whole charisma aspect, I think, because I think and I think you and probably anybody listening or watching like wants to feel genuine on their channel. And so anytime you get on camera and it's like, okay, I need more energy, I need more emotion, I need charisma. It's like, what if I don't feel those things, And it's just like, well, how do you tackle that? Because you don't want to come off or not, maybe you don't even come off as not genuine, but you just feel like an imposter or an intruder or like someone who, like, oh, I made these jokes, but as soon as you turn the camera off, it's just like, oh, I don't feel good. Know, like, how do you balance that?
Right. I wonder if it comes down to just trying to get at the heart of, because laughter happens because maybe you're not taking things too seriously, not taking yourself too seriously. You kind of have a light-hearted, warm approach to life. Yeah. And so maybe that could kind of shine through even if you're not laughing, especially in a solo video. I mean, if you're totally not feeling it on a certain day, maybe try not to film that day. Completely not feeling it ever. Maybe you're on the wrong topic or there's other ways you need to take care of yourself. Yeah. I don't know. I think empathy plays into that a lot too, which again, this one can like be faked and sometimes it feels fake. Like you'll meet someone right away and they're immediately like, oh, wow, you're just so amazing. And you're like, I feel like you say that to everybody, which is fine. Like building people up is great too. But if you're really looking at somebody and looking at, I wonder what their struggles are, or just trying to notice maybe if they're having a hard time with something, or looking at somebody and saying, what is cool about them? What is standing out? Yeah. Maybe with a little more time instead of right away. Or looking at your audience that you can't even see, but maybe you see in the comments or the comments of other videos, creators that are bigger than you are, or just thinking back to your own life when you've had those difficulties and trying to empathize with them. Like, okay, well, how does that feel? And trying to remember, because sometimes by the time you're creating, you're so much further along in that journey that it is hard to remember. Yeah. So I think if you can tap into empathy, just noticing what stands out about people, I think that brings a lot of the warmth. And then power as well, because if you are not completely focused on yourself and trying to impress people and you're focused on other people, that does convey some amount of power of I'm confident and comfortable with who I am. Doesn't matter too much what you think of me.
Right. And even about like confident in what you're talking about or saying, like, like not questioning that or making it so people don't have to question. Like people who speak confidently are just way more trusted than honest people, honestly.
Right.
Like, it's so crazy to me to watch people speak who are just incredibly confident and people just believe, but then you get someone who's really honest, maybe a little more timid, and there's a lot more questioning that goes on. So I think you're right. I think that's also that confidence element. I like that. I like the confidence. Power, I understand how that's sort of overarching some of these other terms that we're using, but I like confidence.
Power is such a strong word.
Yeah. It almost sounds like, it kind of feels manipulative. One other thing kind of related to this that might make it a little bit easier, I think for myself and a lot of other people, when you get on YouTube, you feel like you're sharing yourself, right? It just feels very like you want it to be real. You want to be true to yourself. You want it to not be fake. YouTube is all fairly often very known as the platform for authentic, real content. I think what you need to come to realize is that it is maybe more authentic and more real than reality TV or, a pre-scripted show. But at the end of the day, YouTube channels are shows, like people, even a vlog channel, it is a highlight reel of their day. And maybe you say, well, some people share bad parts of their day. It's like, okay, they give you some ups, they give you some lows. Like they're taking you on a ride, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what topic you're talking about, even if you are completely honest and true and, friendly and whatever, charismatic, the reality is they are not watching 24 hours, 7 days a week of your life. It is a small portion and cut. And so when you think of it that way, you can think about, okay, there are times where I feel happy and charismatic. And if that's the feeling of my channel, then that's what I should give to the audience, And there's just certain emotions or characteristics or traits that you will want to shine through. And you kind of have to think of yourself like, if this was a show, what would my character or persona be feeling or doing or most likely to say? What jokes would I make? Am I serious? If you look at it through that lens, to me, that helps. If I'm not feeling super happy and charismatic, I can still put on that face for the camera and feel okay with it because I'm showing them the piece that they signed up to watch.
Exactly.
And I think that's okay. I don't know if any of that makes sense. That sort of just hit me right now, honestly.
I like how you're kind of zeroing in on the reality of it is, it's hard to get past maybe that feeling of, I want to be genuine, because we all know in the back of our head, like there's people that aren't genuine.
Right.
And there's a lot of opportunity. Like you can show whatever you want to the camera.
Yeah.
You can, to an extent, you can be deceiving.
Yeah.
And so we're all hyper aware of like, oh no, am I doing that?
Yep.
But we don't overthink it that much when we go to dinner with friends. It's like, maybe you had a really bad day, but you're probably not going to show up like completely exasperated. You're going to smile and try to be in a good mood. And maybe you'll get to that eventually, which you can also do on your channel, right?
Exactly.
But I mean, there's a reason that, not that any of us want to be reality TV, but there's a reason that reality TV has a reputation for being completely fake.
Yep.
Because the reality is nobody wants to watch the reality of anyone's life. It is too boring.
So true.
But you can be so much more genuine than that and still be authentic because like you said, it's what they signed up for.
Right.
They are going to YouTube for entertainment, for the highlights. They don't want to hear what you had for breakfast most of the time. And that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Making me think over here. I think that's a good way to approach it. You have any others?
Let me think. I had others and I feel like they're all blending together so
Yeah.
much.
I think you can't take yourself too seriously. Yeah. That kind of goes into what we just talked about, but like just being willing to, even getting to the point where like you show a friend your video, you know, and it's just like you did silly things. Like people are more likely to like you if not even just being silly, but like being a bigger, larger than life version of yourself, whatever that is. Maybe you're really sarcastic, or maybe you're really grumpy, you know, like whatever that is, some audience, some amount of people on YouTube will really like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's like a core characteristic, but that's something that's important.
Yeah. I think we almost start to enjoy the process more once we figure those things out. And it's not something that happens immediately. It can't. But, you know, maybe we think, well, I need to be more energetic on camera, which we've talked about. It's kind of like the baseline. Almost everybody needs to do that.
Yeah.
We were talking about Mark Rober the other day. If anyone doesn't know who he is, if you watch us, you probably do. But he is like an engineer, makes really entertaining videos. He's also the glitter bomb guy.
Yep.
Now you probably know who he is if you didn't yet. Because he made those glitter bombs for people that were stealing porch packages. Got really famous doing that and kept making more videos doing that. That's kind of when he took off. But what's interesting is if you go back to his oldest videos, he seems so flat.
Yeah. You got to watch like his new video versus one of his first videos. I did not realize how much he has improved. It's crazy.
Because he makes it seem genuine in his newer videos. He seems real excited about what he's doing, real passionate. But you don't feel like he's putting on a complete show. And I still wouldn't say he is. I think he's just learned to liven up a bit on camera. Yep. There's a process, and maybe it starts out kind of more rudimentary of, you know, maybe I don't feel this a lot, or I don't know exactly what my angle is, but I'm just going to, you know, I know that when I look at my channel and I look at a more advanced channel, like that's a big difference. So I'm going to try to up the energy. And then maybe over time you learn like, oh, my style is maybe a little more dry, but I can still emphasize that.
Right.
Or maybe I let people in more to the lows of the process or whatever's going on in my life or my channel. But that's still like, it's portrayed in a impactful way.
Yeah.
In that process, you kind of become more yourself than you ever were when you were afraid of the camera and trying to be genuine.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree. Yeah. Anyone who hasn't watched Mark Rober, even if you have, go watch one of his newest videos, and then go watch. It was his roadkill experiment video, and you'll just see like, I think his roadkill experiment video was very much genuine Mark, but I also think his new videos are also genuine Mark. But you can see like his YouTube skills between beginning versus now have improved so much. I mean, you can look at his storytelling, you can look at, you know, his charisma, you can look at his confidence, like everything has improved. And to me, when I watched that, it like really made me like think like, what can we even be doing to just improve ourselves little by little?
Right.
Really
okay.
helpful.
Got one more bonus one.
Okay.
You already said being willing to learn, but I think being willing to ask for help.
Yes.
Help, feedback. But I know with my own channel, like I could have got it eventually, but looking back, I'm like, oh, I didn't have a prayer. Like this was rough.
Right.
But then I, you know, learned from people, learned so much from people. And now a lot of it feels so easy. And now there's hard things. It's always going to feel hard, but so much of what felt almost impossible before, it's like, oh, I know how to do that now.
Yep.
Because people have helped me.
Yeah. Makes a huge difference. And there's a lot of different ways to get that help.
Yeah.
You know, there are YouTube educators out there doing live streams and doing channel reviews, or even people in the comments who might be willing to look at your channels. I mean, we have a private group for our channel makers. It's free, but where we go in there and occasionally we'll do channel reviews or post helpful tips or whatever. Like there's ways to get even free help. I mean, pay for your help, great. But if you just want free help, the internet is a big place, and there's a lot of people out there willing to help.
Right. Help in the way of learning from other people's experiences.
Yes.
Just learning from people who have already done it, whether you're talking to them or reading a book or analyzing what they've done. I was reading a book recently by Scott Young about learning. I think How to Get Good at Anything is the name of it. And he's talking about Tetris and how for the first, like, I don't know, I'm going to butcher these timelines, but maybe 30 years of the game, like people thought that a certain score was impossible, like physically impossible to break. And since then, since like the first person broke it, now tons of people have broken it, like that have not put nearly as many years into this as other people that in the past could not break that, because they have learned the tricks. And especially with the invention of YouTube, he even talks about YouTube. It's like now we can all learn from each other.
Yep.
And suddenly the potential is so much higher than it ever was when you're like in an arcade and figuring things out. And so, I mean, there's a trap there too of always learning and never doing. So don't do that. But yeah, the point is you don't have to pay for help or hire help or You can.
Yeah.
Project 24 is awesome, but there are free ways that you can really learn from other people's experiences.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we said all there is to say, unless you have anything else.
Nope, I'm good.
Cool. All right. I think this was a fun one. Thank you for watching. Let us know what you think are the best characteristics to have trying to grow a channel.
See you guys.
Bye.